But if you want to have impact, you have to get good at all of those things I said. Get good at putting yourself out there, get good at advertising, marketing, selling, onboarding, systems, all of that stuff. And then if that works, you get to help more people. Then you can switch the part of your brain on again that goes, oh, this is nice, I'm helping people, but there's no point dreaming about it. You have to make it happen.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Career Coaching Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Rexhen, and today's guest is Stephen Locke, an executive leadership and career coach who blends 2 decades of senior leadership experience in healthcare, IT, and global organizations with a deep commitment to helping high achievers find purpose, balance, and fulfillment. He's known for turning struggling teams and organizations into success stories. He draws on his background in innovation, change management, and continuous improvement to guide clients beyond career plateaus and into meaningful, sustainable growth. It's a pleasure for me to have him on the podcast today. Welcome to the show, Stephen.
It's a pleasure to be here, Rexhen.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, Stephen. So wanted to learn a little bit more about your beginnings as a coach. So first of all, what inspired you to become a coach and then start your own coaching business?
Well, there's a cool synchronicity to that in that it was a coach who inspired me to be a coach, but not directly. I was fortunate enough to work with a coach who was in training, and so I was just given the opportunity to work with somebody as they were practicing. And one day she asked me a question. I don't remember what the question was, but it was about my future career. And I found myself saying, I want agency over my time. And it was like a bomb went off in my head. And I realized that the career I was pursuing, which I had been pursuing for 20 years, which was one of climbing the ladder. I managed to become a director of a national organization in the UK, and I wanted to be a CEO. And I realized in that moment that that wasn't going to get me what I wanted, and something had to change. Now, that was the moment that it shifted. But at that point, I didn't know I wanted to be a coach. I just knew I didn't want to do what I was doing. So should I carry on with the story?
Yeah, please.
So then what happened was, and this happens quite a lot when you work with a coach, they open your mind and you then find yourself reflecting all the time on like, well, what does this mean? What am I going to do? How do I change? And I had a really good job, a very stable job. I had quite a lot of status, I guess. I was quite well known in my world in the UK. And also I have 4 children. I have a mortgage. I've got bills to pay and things like that. So I wasn't in a position to just quit my job and go and explore what I wanted to do. And then again, another serendipity happened. I was asked by my chief executive what they could do to help my career. And by pure chance, the day before, somebody had said to me, you should train to be a coach. You'd be good at it. And what they meant was like an internal coach kind of thing. And so that was in my mind. And I said, would you fund me to do some training and coaching? And then the moment I met the person who trained me, I realized this is what I want to do. And I spent a year training, worked really hard at it, and then tried to figure out if I could turn it into a career.
Cool. And so right now it's been like almost 4 years since you did that, or?
Yeah, so I did my training 4 years ago. And then I spent around about a year doing work on the side, evenings and weekends. And then eventually I went part-time in my job. So I went like 1 day a week trying to work as a coach. And just originally just to see if I could make back the money that I lost. That was kind of my ambition. And then somebody said to me, or actually I read online, I think, that if you can make 60% of your income from your side hustle, there's no risk to going all in. And after about a year after hearing that, I did it. I had a month where I earned 60% from 1 day a week that I was getting from a good salary.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did it again the month after that. And then I did it again the month after that. And I happened to have a conversation with the woman who trained me, and I told her that. And she's a coach. So she asked a very coaching question, which was, what's holding you back? And I hadn't asked myself that. But what I said was, I just want to enjoy it for a moment, because I was really proud of what I'd done by myself. I did it working really hard, trying hard, being consistent, and I'd achieved that milestone. So I just wanted to enjoy it. But then soon after that, I handed in my notice and decided to see if I could actually make a living out of coaching.
And right now, at this point, I can assume that you already have passed the salary you had initially.
Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
So I did that in my first year as a coach
Mm-hmm.
by quite a considerable way, and this year I'll do better again. So yes.
Amazing. So it was the right thing to do at that time.
So far.
And yeah, interesting perspective you have there. So right now, we mentioned that you do a little bit of both. So like actually there's three. So executive coaching, leadership coaching, and career coaching. Now, thinking about that, when it comes to your ideal client profile, how would you describe that? I know we're talking about leaders for the most part, but is there a certain industry or a certain demographic that you find, or some common goals that they have? How would you describe the ideal client?
So I have two, and there's a reason why. You have to, obviously, it's so important in business that you're clear about who you're targeting. But also, when you are starting out, of course, you don't have any clients. So most people have to compromise a bit, and they have to say, I'm going to take this work because I have to pay my bills. And it might not be ideal, but it's close. It's close enough, and you win enough work. And that was kind of how I did it in the beginning. So it was mostly just like word of mouth. People would say, "Oh, well, I know this guy. He does this thing," and then I won these random little contracts and pieces of work. But when I got more established, I looked at it much more as a business and divided it into two parts. So I have my executive and leadership coaching practice. And in that, my specialism really is working with innovators. So I work a lot with founders, entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
I've won a contract. I'm the coach for the UK's Advanced Research and Invention Agency. So I coach their executive and senior team. But what is common to them is that they are innovative, agile, creative business people. So the support that they tend to need is they are really capable, high achieving type A people. They know how to make things happen. They know how to run projects. They know how to run teams. But sometimes they can need a bit of help getting that into perspective and managing their own careers, because they tend to rush at everything quickly, and finding space and time to think about the next 10 years is valuable to them. So that's one thing. But then I guess my passion is helping people. I don't call myself a career coach generally, but I work with people mostly in the middle part of life who have achieved success, but realize that they're not fulfilled. It's not making them happy for reasons that they maybe don't understand. And I help them, a phrase that I hear them or sometimes say to them that gets the response is, this can't be it. They've done all the right things. They worked hard at school. They went to university. They got a good degree. They joined the right firm and they climbed the ladder. And then at some point in the middle part of life, they go, why is this not feeling right? Mm-hmm. And then it can be really hard for those people because they have a level of comfort they have a level of salary, they've got a level of status and things like that, that it's hard to imagine breaking any of that in order to do something different. And so, yeah, those are the two main groups that I tend to help with.
And how is the engagement you have with each group? So when it comes to them working with you, if they're listening, how would you describe the engagement? Is there one-on-one coaching, group coaching? Is there a certain program of a certain length?
So with the executive coaching, it tends to be a mixture of team-based things. So helping teams to work together better, to make decisions, have more effective meetings, do strategy together better. And it's that kind of thing, but as a group or as a team, coupled with one-to-one coaching where they really value the confidential space to work through what's going on with them. I also, but on the personal career side, I have my own program which I take people through over 6 months to help them figure that out, figure out what they want to do. Then they go from there. I prefer not to keep people on a retainer. I prefer to do it for a period of time and then say, okay, right, if we both do our part right, in 6 months' time, you won't need me, and that's what I prefer that to other models, and it seems to be reasonably successful. And one of the first testimonials I got, I did something like this, recorded it, and the woman I was working with said, "It's like learning a new way of life." And that made me feel good. And then last week, I got a random email from a client on the program who called me a coaching rock star. He said he's much happier in his life and his work. And so that gives me a lot of satisfaction to help people like that.
Amazing. And so right now, when it comes to you finding your clients, is it mostly from your referral network? You mentioned a little bit about that at the beginning, but is there also like LinkedIn and other stuff you're doing?
Mm-hmm. It's a reasonable amount is referrals, but my main method for promotion, I've got two. One is LinkedIn, so I post really consistently and I engage quite intentionally with other people's work.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a newsletter which goes out 5 days a week where I share. It's mostly like coaching tips or mindset tips and things like that. Now, with both of those things, my price point is quite high, and so I don't look to monetize those directly. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't, LinkedIn, for example, there's a lot of models that go, I will post some content, we will see who reacts to it, then we'll send them a DM, and then the DM will lead to a conversation, then we try and get them to book a call. I don't really do that. For me, everything that I do in marketing is really about signaling status and value and confidence. And mostly when I get somebody on a sales call, it's so common that what they say is, "I've been following your content for months." Now, they won't have commented or replied or reacted or anything like that, but they've been watching.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I use it. It's over time building authority in individuals' minds, and then when they're ready, they reach out to me instead of somebody else.
Interesting. So you're using kind of like in a way to nurture
Mm-hmm.
the relationship before they get to meet you,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have kind of like a discovery call or something like that. Cool. Well, potentially this might save you a discovery call if the right people are listening to it.
Yeah. Hey, book a call. Like, come on.
Cool. So right now, how do you see the future of your coaching business like for the next 1 to 3 years? Do you have any specific goals you're working towards?
Yeah, I do. So I don't tend to set very direct revenue goals. I just set like a range, like I'd like to get to this milestone within this kind of time period and so on. But I am quite ambitious. So, but also I think every business, every coaching business goes through phases, and you have to acknowledge when you've ended one and you're about to start another. And I really have just moved through a phase, like literally in the last few weeks. So I think people listening to this who are coaches, or if they've ever started a business, they know what the first few years are like. You are going to work harder for longer for limited reward for a long time if you really want to succeed. That certainly was true of me. I worked a lot of weekends. I was up at 6 o'clock in the morning posting things on LinkedIn. I have this office here, which is away from my house. And on a Saturday afternoon, my daughter goes to a club round the corner for an hour and a half. And so, I could go and get a coffee, but I don't. I come here and I work. And you have to do that. And it's normal and it's fine. And I loved it. But also, I've now got to a position where my monthly recurring revenue is sufficient to pay my bills.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I did was I took a holiday, and it was the first proper holiday I've had in like 3 years or something where I genuinely did not do any work. Not quite true. I had to spill, but other than that, I didn't do any work. I now have a virtual assistant who helps me. So she essentially does a lot of the client liaison stuff, which means that now I can focus on how do I scale. And obviously, I can't scale my hours beyond a certain number. So there are two strategies going on together for me. So it goes back to the leadership stuff and executive stuff versus the personal. So on the executive and leadership stuff, because I now have some clients they have a degree of status when I mention that I am the coach for these people. So I'm very deliberately targeting their peers with very personal, soft approaches to say, oh, by the way, I know you know these people. Did you know that I'm their coach? And just nurturing a bit more directly and looking at bigger contracts. So sometimes organizations, give out a contract for 12 months or something like that. That's a lot more sustainable than trying to win business every month. Mm-hmm. And now that I have one contract like that, part of my strategy is to try and win another and then another and build out. I've already got a couple of affiliate coaches who work with me. So, we get paid an hourly rate. They get 60%, I get 50%. So I make money when I'm not working, which is kind of nice. So that's the businessy side of it. On the personal side, I think I've mentioned that I'm really passionate about that because it really changes people's lives. And so I'm using now the fact that I don't need to concern myself with winning business quite in the same way in order to build a little bit more personal brand around that. So I'm working on things that, feed into that. The idea being that if I could scale that beyond where it is at the moment, I can help more people. The more people I can help, the more money I make, the more I can advertise. So that's the two strategies.
Are you thinking of scaling, given that you're definitely, every coach kind of like faces this limitation of their time being like the next constraint? The way to deal with that is either you'd have to have other coaches join and work with you as contractors, or you'd have to start doing group coaching and get more clients at the same time. So you have to do either one or the other, unless you're like selling some course or something like that, which could be an addition to this, but it's not really the way to scale. So how are you thinking about it?
It's a very interesting question. So my plan is if we just talk about the personal career coaching side, is I already have my program works as a group program. So I can scale the majority of that without adding more time. And actually, the more people in the group, the more value, because you get this cross support kind of thing. And I know that works because I've shown that it works over the last 18 months or so. The challenge really for me comes, and you'll appreciate this as a marketeer, is that's very different messaging to work with me personally, one-to-one, it's going to cost this many thousands, whatever. It's just very, very different. It's a different funnel. It's a different approach. So I'm giving myself time to experiment with that and see what works and just enjoy it and see what happens. If that doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'll try something else.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. And it's a natural challenge that comes with it. Is that like the only challenge you're seeing right now? Is mostly on the messaging, or are there other issues you notice?
Now, the biggest one's AI. And I think obviously we've got how long, like 20 minutes into talking about this without mentioning AI. Now, this is really interesting. I was talking to somebody that I know at lunchtime about this who's just training to be a coach, actually. And it's fascinating because I use ChatGPT as a coach.
Yes.
Of course I do. And I also have created my own GPT, which is based on my approach. And a small number of my clients use that. They find it extremely valuable and they know that it is serving up coaching. It is consistent with me. They know me. They know that it gives the sort of engagement that I would give. It's not as good, of course, but it's pretty good. Now, what happens to coaching when everybody's got a coach in their pocket is a really interesting question. Now, my optimistic take on this is that I find it really useful, but partly because I am a coach, I can encourage a GPT to work with me in a way that I couldn't if I wasn't a coach. So if it starts just giving me advice, I know how to say, no, don't act like that, act like this. And if it doesn't feel right, if I feel like I'm not being coached, I just stop. But I know from experience, if I use it in a different area, so I used it recently to try and explore something to do with literature. I was trying to find a passage from a poem that might be interesting to a client. And it gave me this beautiful, absolutely fantastic, absolutely perfect bit of poetry from the middle of a long poem by a poet that I'd recommended. So I went to buy that book and I found that poem. But those two paragraphs are not in the poem. The GPT made them up. It wasn't real. So I know that it's making mistakes in a field that I don't understand. So it's definitely making mistakes in a field that I do understand. And I suspect that what's going to happen is it's going to make quality coaching more valuable because people begin to realize the benefits of the human to human interaction in a way that we've taken for granted. But there's going to be a period of transition when I think winning business for coaches is going to be hard, really hard. Now, my strategy for dealing with this might be overly optimistic, is if I can run ahead of the tide so that I have enough clients who will refer me enough times that I'll survive that inevitable wave. But it concerns me. Is this something that you see other people talking about?
I've actually had this discussion just last night in another episode, and the coach I was talking with, his perspective was that because of AI, this is definitely a concern that has come up often in the podcast, but his perspective was that because of AI evolving and growing over time, obviously it used to do a lot more mistakes early on. Now it's doing a lot less. It's still not that accurate yet, but it's like new things are coming up almost every quarter. So it's like we had just a few days ago, we had ChatGPT 5. It's too slow in a way, but there's some more accuracy, I think. Now, his perspective on this was that maybe some of the more traditional coaching might go away with AI, meaning AI might be able to handle some of the basic traditional coaching that coaches used to do maybe 5 to 10 years ago. So that might be going away, but some more deeper questions like working on purpose, why we're here, like if the leaders are having these questions, or like going into spirituality and going like to deeper topics, those are things that potentially might not be yet replaceable by AI. And yeah, that is kind of like the perspective he had. From what I think about this is that AI, unless it's trained, just like you said, unless it's trained by a coach and you have a coach who's trained it, if you're using it as a coach, but you're not a coach yourself, it typically will say things like, "Oh, that's right. That's great. It's
Yeah.
always going to agree with you in a way," which I find that is not very productive. It's not that agreeing is bad, but it's just like it always makes you feel like you're always right.
Mm-hmm.
And the human interaction obviously is not there. AI will not be able to kind of like read behind the lines. It's just going to understand what you are able to understand. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
if you're asking a question, that's the level of context it will have. It's not going to know beyond that, while a coach might be able to dig and kind of like understand a little bit deeper into what you actually mean, because these unknown unknowns are going to be unknown unknowns for the AI as well, while the coach might be able to unlock them with certain questions. So I feel like that's where the advantage is between a coach and AI. And it's like, obviously, accuracy is not there yet, but with time, it might get better.
Mm-hmm.
But some of these things are yet not gonna. Yeah, it's not possible to fix those yet as of now, until like it becomes so good that it reads body language, it understands how you speak,
Mm-hmm.
understands these weird pauses, or like tries to read behind the lines. I feel like maybe if it gets to that point, it might be a better than the traditional coach 5 to 10 years
Mm-hmm.
ago. But yeah, that is kind
Yeah.
of my take on it.
I agree, and like my kind of observation about that is, I totally agree with your other guest. By the way, 100%. That's true, and particularly when you are talking about things more to do with meaning, purpose, and yeah, spirituality and things like that. So, I guess what makes I didn't mention this before, but what makes my program a bit different is all coaching is goal oriented. You're either trying to achieve something or you're trying to overcome a problem. You're trying to fix something. And so, the classic coaching model is that one of them is the grow model. So you start with goals, reality, options, and then the will or to do something or when you're going to do it. And that's the classic coaching flow. But what I've found is the people that I am here to help, they know that they don't have what they want, but they don't know what they do want, and they don't know why they feel the way that they feel. So in my program, there's a whole month dedicated to clarifying your goals and like understanding what you really want. But I don't let people unlock that until they've spent a whole month understanding who they are, and not who they are now at this point in their life. Not when they got their last job, or not when they got married, or not when they chose their degree, or when they got on the path that they're on. But if you take away all of the labels that they've accumulated and all of the responsibilities and say, who am I? Like, what do I actually think? What do I believe? What matters to me? What doesn't matter to me? Until people really understand that, any goal they're going to set is probably somebody else's goal. It's just the simplest idea of not this that I can think of, or they're going to create a goal that ultimately isn't going to lead to happiness. Have you ever heard the term called the arrival fallacy? So classic, and people go through it over and over and over again. So listeners who don't know what it is, it's the idea that we assume that we will be happy when such a thing happens. And it might be we get that job, we get that girl or guy, we have the holiday, we get the Porsche, we get a certain level of income or the house, or the garden's finished, or we get the new bathroom, or whatever. I'll be happy when. And then what happens is you get the thing and you go, oh my word, well, wait a minute, where's all the happiness then? Why am I not happy? And that's called the arrival fallacy. So the antidote to that is simple, but not easy. The antidote is to figure out how you live a life that, as much as possible, fills your days with things that have genuine meaning to you. And some of that will be about things that you do for yourself. Some will be about things that you do for your family. It has to include things that you do for your community. and also things that you do for your work. And that's not necessarily a job title. It's like, what do you spend your time doing? Is it, and I really love helping people to figure that out. And then the final part of the jigsaw for me is daily practice. Like, what we all know, there are things that we should do every day that will keep us well and spiritually and emotionally and mentally healthy. And so that might be prayer or meditation or breath work or walking in nature or reading novels or whatever. It could be different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it would be breath work, meditation. I know I should do that every day. And so recognizing that and prioritizing that is really, really important. But unless you actually sit down and really do some work on this over a sustained period of time, ideally with some help, you're not going to figure it out. So you're just going to spend the next 5 years hoping that things get better.
It's kind of interesting that we are set up to be this way. Where this is not something you're taught in any school or anything like that. You're not prepared for it. So some people just spend their lives trying to arrive somewhere, and then they're like 85 if they're lucky, and it's like they haven't arrived. So it is so interesting that, yeah, it's like a contract you make with yourself to not be happy until you arrive, and then you'll never arrive. So yeah, there's also the other way where you just like accept not being happy. You just like say, I'm not going to be happy. That's going to be fine.
Well, acceptance is a really, really important part of life.
Yeah.
Sometimes it that can really help as well. If you just, I'm a big fan, and sometimes I challenge people with this, to try and be as radical as they can in how much they accept, how much compassion they have for other people, how much compassion they have for themselves, how open they are with what they want. So transparency, I guess, just be radical about all of those things. But the biggest one, I think, is acceptance. Like just going, okay, whatever I experience, whatever my story is, whatever brought me up to this point today, I might not have been the person that created the bad things. The bad bits could have been because somebody else did something, somebody else said something, because I didn't have the advantages that somebody else did or whatever. But if you just be really radical and go, okay, maybe none of this is my fault, but it is 100% my responsibility. And taking control of your own story and saying, I choose not to be a victim. I choose not to blame other people. I choose not to blame circumstances. I choose not to blame my parents or that person that bullied me at school. I choose to accept that all of that happened, and I'm going to go forward. So yeah, this is why I say you need a bit of help, you need a guide. And that's sometimes how I see coaching. Is my job is just to walk alongside somebody for a little while until they don't need it anymore, and then off they go, happy.
Thank you, Stephen. And so for the coaches who are listening, if we could leave them, the coaches who are thinking of scaling their impact, if we could leave them with an advice from you, and it would be like an advice you'd give to yourself as well, potentially. So don't think about who's going to listen to it, but like coaches like yourself who are thinking of scaling their impact, what advice would you give for those coaches?
That's such a hard question. It's a good one because to me, there's so many parts to that. The scaling bit is an interesting one because when I hear the word scaling, I go straight to, it's like a business thing. It's like, oh, how do I get more clients? How do I get more money, more revenue, blah, 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 blah. Well, that's the scaling part. And I am not motivated by that. And I think this is the advice I give. Most people get into coaching because they've experienced it themselves or something similar, like maybe therapy or maybe, training or whatever. And they realize that they have a desire to help other people have a better outcome in their life or their work, their career, or whatever it is, right? That's how most people get into it. And then they train, however they do that. And while they're doing that, people are going to talk to you about ethics, and they're going to talk to you about contracting. But what they're going to mean when they say that is, how do you establish what the purpose of coaching is and what are the goals for the coach and the coachee? And that's what they mean. And they mean ethics. And so you get into this mindset, which is a little bit about minimizing risk. And it's a bit about, it feels almost like a caring relationship. And at some point, you need to get your head around the fact that this is a business. Mm-hmm. And so that means there needs to be a bigger part of your brain that is saying, if I want to help as many people as I possibly can, I have to get good at marketing, advertising, selling, and looking after customers. And that's not what they teach you at coach school. At coach school, they teach you all the other stuff. And I see this often with people who are starting out to be coaches. I get approached a couple of times a month by people asking, how do you do what you do? And apart from telling them, work really hard until it works, I say, you just have to understand that this is business. If it's a lifestyle job, cool. Do a lifestyle job, that's okay. But if you want to have impact, you have to get good at all of those things I said. Get good at putting yourself out there. Get good at advertising, marketing, selling, onboarding, systems, all of that stuff. And then, if that works, you get to help more people. Then you can switch the part of your brain on again that goes, oh, this is nice, I'm helping people, but there's no point dreaming about it. You have to make it happen.
Thank you, Steven. That was an amazing advice. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for coming to our podcast today. For anyone who wants to connect with you or find you, they can go into LinkedIn, look up Steven Locke. They'll be able to find your profile. Is there also, if I'm not mistaken, a website they can go to? StevenLockeCoaching.com, right?
That's right, StevenLockeCoaching.com. You can find me there. I also have the newsletter that I mentioned, which is hero-newsletter.com. And love people to subscribe to that, and they'll get tips from me nearly every day.
We'll make sure to put that also in the description of this podcast. But yeah, thank you so much, Steven.
My pleasure. Really nice to get to know you a bit.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.